The Florida Gators have their new head coach. It is not Lane Kiffin. It is Jon Sumrall, formerly, or I guess currently, still the head coach at Tulane for the rest of this season, as long as this wave shall continue. Pun not really intended, but kind of figured that was going to be a nice way to get the show started. Also at the same time. Speaking of the show, it's the All Kinds of Weather Forecast. You know who we are. I'm Neil. He's Adrian. Follow me at All Kinds Weather. Follow Adrian at Gator Diamond Pod for his baseball stuff. Also ADNDEL on Twitter for his personal other sports stuff. We got some news to talk about tonight, Adrian. We got to talk about that in just a second after we get our sponsors a shout out that they deserve. Got to shout out 401k Generation, wealth management company that helps you invest today for your future tomorrow. Their team of advisors is committed to providing guidance and education for your 401k plan and its participants, and they also offer a range of enrollment solutions tailored to meet the unique needs of your company's 401k plan. Whether it's savings for your child's college, investment advice, even just your retirement, 401k Generation's team of advisors makes getting to know you their top priority. Their advisors will tailor a path to assist you in navigating life's financial milestones and reaching your financial goals. 401k Generation, building stronger futures, one generation at a time. For more information, contact them, 866-998-5879, or visit their website at 401kgeneration.com. Also, do not forget to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/CFB That's where you can get exclusive access to everything behind the All Kinds of Weather Forecast model that has come scary close to predicting a lot of final scores this year, including helping Dustin bullseye the Mississippi State score 23-21. I think it's batting more than 60% against the spread this year. I have to go check the last week's results. It was at 60.4% after the Tennessee week. So, pre-Thanksgiving week was 60.4%. I'll have to check that to make sure it's still over 60 for the year. But even if it's just dipped under, still phenomenal against the spread number to be above 55%. 60% is pretty close, if not at the thresholds of being able to make money in Vegas as a professional gambler. So that is patreon.com/CFB Forecaster. All right. Well, Adrian, this is normally the time of year where we put a bow on the season. We talk about a bowl game, of course, thanks to Billy Napier's various forms of incompetence. We don't get to do that because he was fired, and thus there became a vacancy for the Florida head coaching job that we thought was going to be filled with Lane Kiffin, was not filled by Lane Kiffin, is now being filled with Jon Sumrall. So I'll let you have the floor now. Give us your initial thoughts, because this news just broke or just became official. We kind of knew it was coming. I think a lot of people kind of knew it was coming for some time now, but it's just become official now. So, Adrian, now that it's finally official, what are your initial thoughts on this?
We're going to talk about it and get into it a little bit more in depth and stuff like that. But just initial thoughts, you're just basically, come on, 7. Come on, 7. You're going to Vegas, and hiring a coach is not easy. It's kind of a gamble to begin with. But here you are again, obviously, going back to the group of 5, back to, the Sun Belts of the world, and bringing in a coach with an eerily similar record, similar past to the one that you just got rid of. So the optics for that, for the University of Florida, were always the ones that we were kind of concerned about, right? Early on, if you go back to some of these tweets early on from people in, Gator media, Gator fan base and stuff like that, when the whole coaching search even started, Summerall's name came up a couple times, and more than a couple times, and everybody was of the same sentiment. No way. There is no way we're going to hire a group of 5 coach, much less one who's not even an offensive-minded coach, a defensive-minded coach. So the prevailing thought was that the number one priority was going to be an offensive-minded head coach, and more than likely one with Power 4 coaching experience, if not a current Power 4 coach. Now, the problem is that pretty much zeroed in on only a handful of people, and there was one that really stood out the most. Everybody knows who that is. So once you missed on him, and you fall back on however it is, all the stories are going to now start coming out, all the different narratives, all the different spins of how we ended up at Jon Sumrall. But now that you are here, now you lost, a little bit of that control you had of setting that narrative and following through on what even though Stricklin never came out and said, this is exactly what we're hiring in the next head coach, it was pretty much understood, man. And I know that a lot of boosters and stuff had that same understanding. So now you see the damage control portion of tonight's entertainment start already. And that's, immediately you saw the statement from Spurrier. You saw the video from my man back here, Danny Warfel. You saw the video from Urban Meyer. All the damage control immediately started as soon as the announcement of the coach was put out there. And, unfortunately, man, I hope we don't do this to ourselves as a fan base and sabotage this even before it gets started. Yes, if you are watching this and you've watched any one of the podcasts in the last couple of months, you know that I was as big a Lane guy as anybody. I've been for the last 8 years. But this is the coach now. So unless you just want to sign off and come back in 3 years for the next coaching hire, you got to support this. I don't see any other way about it. We could complain.
Wait a minute. Wait. Sorry. You say that like this is going to be a failure within 3 years.
Well, if you are of the mindset of no matter what, I'm checking out. Okay, then go ahead and check out and check back in 3 years, and we'll see where we're at. If we're in another coaching hire cycle, then welcome back. Cool. Hey, maybe this guy has it rolling, and then you'll jump up on the bandwagon. But in the meantime, am I disappointed in this hire? You bet you know what I am. I'm disappointed in this hire. But, man, everywhere I look, and of course, it could be now the reverse, right? The reverse Uno card on University of Florida, especially if we're conspiracy theorists here. Everybody was complaining about us going after Lane Kiffin to begin with. And now that we don't have Lane Kiffin, and now we're all disappointed in the coach that we do have, but now college football world is saying, well, what's wrong with you? Why is Gator football fans so ungrateful? This is a great coach, because there's very few people you'll find out there that doesn't say this is a A+ hire. Okay, very few people. I follow this guy Brooks Austin, does great video work and stuff like that. He calls this an A+ hire. I think Sumrall is the next defensive process-oriented super freak. If I'm betting on the next Saban, smart, Lanning disciple, this is him. And that's just one. And of takes like that, you'll find many. Cole Kubelik, home run hire. You'll find many across the college football landscape. And I'll leave it with this, Neil, and then I'll kick it back to you. When it's all said and done, based on all the reading and researching that I've done and stuff like that, anybody who didn't get Lane Kiffin pretty much had this guy as their number one, if not 1B choice, okay? Up to and including LSU and Ole Miss. So, unfortunately, we're suffering from still the Billy Napier era as a fan base, and it's going to be a while for us to get through that psychological trauma that we were put through, and it is through that lens that we are judging this hire, unfortunately. So that's my take, man.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of different subjects or subtopics or sub-conversations that need to be had. The main ones of which were the hire itself, who the guy is, what his background is, what he can do for Florida, And the other one of which is how this whole process was conducted. Because there is a world that I could see where Jon Sumrall is wildly successful at Florida. Is it something I would rush to Vegas or Atlantic City to bet money on? No. Would I rush to our friends at Poly Market and go place bets on them to win the national championship right now? Probably not. But it's conceivable. It's certainly possible. Because, like you said, it's a gamble to hire head coaches. Even if that's what happens, this coaching search was bungled, was messed up, was just completely botched at multiple turns by many different people who all tried to put their hands in, whether they thought they were putting their hands in or not. I'm talking Scott Stricklin. I'm talking the message boards people. We're not even going to go into the 8-minute rant by the KC Gator guy, right? But I mean, you have all this stuff going out there, all these rumors going out there about some of our highest boosters like Gary Condren and all that stuff. Every single thing that happened that reached the public eye goes completely against Florida's idea of moving in silence. And that includes, if you remember, Adrian, 2 weeks ago with this little prologue, because people are probably going to forget now, but on November 19th, there was a sneak peek of the Jon Sumrall hire. November 19th, the news is floated that Florida met with him or was set to meet with him, almost like it was being used as a smokescreen for Florida to try to go after Lane Kiffin, like a diversion tactic, right? Like if you're, for example, we're not going to talk politics on the show, but let's just say you want to hypothetically send jets from Missouri going west over the Pacific Ocean while you come from a base in Bermuda and you strike your enemy in the Middle East, right? Like it's a diversion because you have everyone and their eyeballs on those jets taking off from the Missouri Air Force Base. Whereas, and you make noise about it, you kind of let it slip or leak out. Hey, these fighter jets are taking off from Missouri. That never happens. Go check that out. While sight unseen, these stealth bombers from Bermuda or from your base in, Osan, where our friend Chris Urich works, takes off and goes and does the actual job for us. So I thought that that's what that was when that whole news bit broke, that we were going after Sumrall with that interview. And then maybe, 45 minutes later, the news then breaks that, oh no, just kidding. Just kidding. We're not actually meeting with him. Like it almost felt like Scott Stricklin was floating that out there to test the fans' thoughts on Sumrall. And then 45 minutes later, when fans screamed bloody murder over it, Stricklin quickly basically Command Z'd the whole thing. Reports started flying out that the meeting was either canceled or never scheduled to begin with, just more propaganda work from the UAA. So it's stuff like that, stuff like the spaces, stuff like the message board posts from Gary Condren that may or may not have even been real, right? We think they are. We have reason to believe they are, but I don't know. They could have been, forged, right? So all that kind of stuff just really does not help. When Florida's whole thing was moving in silence. Some of this was Stricklin's fault because he, wound up kind of tipping his hand for the guy Florida actually wound up hiring. So that's not great. And then, again, the way that you apparently give Lane Kiffin until kickoff of the Egg Bowl to decide. And then, again, this is all rumor and speculation, but then apparently Kiffin's base gets word that our biggest booster doesn't really want that hire and they want to go to bachelor number 2, as they call it, right? So then you go, well, wait a minute. I don't know that I like the fact that Florida's number 1 booster doesn't like us very much. We need to now think about this some more. In that interim, while they're thinking about it some more, kickoff from the Egg Bowl comes, the game is played. Therefore, that deadline was missed, right? And now Florida's number 1 guy is missing the deadline, and you're not going to give him an extension. So you now then go and pivot away from the guy that you set up all these smoke screens for, now to go to your second option, which another issue with this among many was my second choice would have been Lincoln Riley, a guy who has had 1, 2, 3 Heisman Trophy winners under his tutelage as a head coach. Like that to me is where I would go next. He's about the same age as Sumrall, Jon Sumrall, I think, is 43. Lincoln Riley, with some very quick Google research right now on the fly, is actually younger. He's 42. So, actually younger coach, more experienced, more success under his belt, more proven success, right? And an offense that we know works, is fun to watch. His problem was marrying himself to Alex Grinch, which that's a whole different conversation for a whole different day, that one that we don't even need to have now because he's not coming. But point is, that's where I would have gone second. If choice number one doesn't work, that's where I go second. But again, Jon Sumrall is the guy. We have to talk about what is now. And let's start doing that. Let's start doing that with a very, very quick history of Tulane football, which, Adrian, you and I don't talk about stuff like this before the show, so we can get live and real reactions from each other. So some of the stuff I'm about to rattle off, you might not have even realized. But first things first, Tulane. I have a couple cousins who go there, who one went there, one now currently goes there, a little younger than me. I've visited them at Tulane. That whole campus loves him. They are absolutely devastated right now, just from the few texts I got. In fact, another one just came in literally just now as we were starting to record. Shout out Jacqueline and Amelia. Love you guys. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry we took your guy. They love him at Tulane. Long and short of it, they are just absolutely adoring of him. And I'll tell you part of the reason why. It's because Tulane is not in the SEC. In fact, they left the SEC for a reason a long time ago. That reason may or may not have been very, very apparent last December when Billy Napier beat them down 33-8 in the Pirate Bowl, and that 8 came in the final seconds. But just to set some perspective for why they love him so much, very quick history of Tulane football. They leave the SEC in 1966, and they absolutely fall off a cliff. It is not bad. It is just absolutely devastatingly bad. So in those 50 years, from 1966 to when Willie Fritz comes in 2016, they make it to exactly 8 bowl games in 50 years. And in 6 of those 50 years, they don't just have losing seasons, they lose double-digit games. That's 10 losses, 11 losses, 12 losses in those in those 50 years. And also, in those 50 years, of those 50, 31 of them had 7 or more losses. That's how bad they were. Imagine, just think about it, if Florida was there. Obviously, we're not that bad, but that's the territory we're kind of starting to trend in over the last 5 years. So basically, they're in the desert. They're in the football desert for 50 years, probably because in part they focus on academics. Then along comes Willie Fritz in 2016. Initially, he struggles. It's a bumpy takeoff. It takes some time, but gradually he gets them off the ground and builds the Green Wave into a legitimate, certainly consistently decent program. Never elite, but usually in a bowl game, which again, 8 bowl games in 50 years before his arrival. He got them the bowl game in year 3, in year 4, and then in year 5. So clearly there's something there that he's building a foundation for. Then year 6 is really bad. They fall back down. They're 2-10 again. Year 7, complete flip. Things click, and Tulane goes and wins their conference. They go to the Cotton Bowl, and they beat USC. The next year, again, really good. 11-3. This time they lose in the conference title game. But again, even that is uncharted territory for them. And then Willie Fritz leaves them at the altar for Houston. And that's when they go to Troy and they get Jon Sumrall. So they've just been brought out of this desert, out of this wilderness for football from 50 years of just wandering around the desert like nomads, finally have a taste of success. And then Willie Fritz leaves them for Houston, devastates their roster because the portal is a thing. This is only 2 years ago. The portal was alive and well. He just decimates the roster, leaves Jon Sumrall with a few pieces, but very, very little to work with. And in year 1, he comes in and gets them to 9 wins, gets them to their conference championship game. Of course, the team that we know now for losing to Billy Napier in Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl. But for Jon Sumrall to take over that team in year 1, again, in the portal era when they got hit hard, and get them to 9-5 is an accomplishment. Then, of course, comes this year where they're in the CFP chase. All they have to do is win their conference title game, and logic suggests they will be the Group of 5 representative. So That's the long and short of Tulane football. It is an impoverished program over the past now 60 years. And Jon Sumrall was able to come in after Willie Fritz gave them their first taste of success and basically did what Lane Kiffin is doing to Ole Miss right now, or trying to do to Ole Miss right now, which is have some success and then wipe out their roster of all the talent that got them that success. Sumrall is basically, he's done with Tulane what someone would do at Ole Miss if Ole Miss was 9-3 next year. Like, that's the best analogy I can think of for this. I've talked to a few Tulane fans today, my cousins, some of their friends, talked to them about this, and that's the example they basically gave me. What Sumrall has done with Tulane would be like if someone went to Ole Miss now after Kiffin wipes their roster devoid of all their talent and all their assistants and gets them not the CFP in year one, but he gets them to 8-4, 9-3. A hell of a job for Jon Sumrall. So, with that said, Adrian, does any of that impress you at all about Sumrall?
Also last year when we did play Tulane in the Gasparilla Bowl.
Yep.
When we did play him, remember they had their quarterback opt out, and they had almost double-digit starters opt out of that game. Okay,
and the quarterback that they did have, everyone knew was going to the portal anyway.
Correct.
Which is crazy to think about.
So that was a shell of the team that we played at the Gasparilla Bowl. Now, obviously, we didn't care. We turned it into, man, Billy's on a roll, 4 in a row to end the season. We're well on our way, and we all know how that turned out. But listen, man, it's all going to come down to who the OC hire is for me. I got to wait and see who the OC hire is before I really start to sound the alarm and get concerned, because you're hearing a bunch of names right now, right? You're hearing a bunch of names out there. Dable, the former Giants head coach, that there's a connection between him and the new GM Caldwell that we haven't even talked about, obviously. You're hearing names like, Charlie Weiss, who you could forget him. He was hopping on the plane just a few minutes ago to go to LSU, so he ain't coming here. And you're hearing names like Cade Bell, Kerwin Bell's son, who's the OC at Pitt. So, yeah, any one of those people would be great hires for the OC. Great names. They're not here yet. So let's see who they hire. Because if they go ahead and throw all these names out there, because, man, this sounds a lot like what happened a few years ago, guys. If they go ahead and start throwing a bunch of names out there, and then you just go right back and he brings his OC from Tulane, man, it's like, what's going on here, man? You really hate your fan base that much, Mr. Stricklin?
So the answer to that is yes, he does.
And we've been saying that.
Yeah.
People are starting to realize it. And I remember saying, never underestimate Scott Stricklin sabotaging that Kiffin hire. And there's definitely a narrative out there that does say that Scott Stricklin sabotaged that Stricklin hire. But that's neither here nor there. That's not what you just asked. So for me, it's going to be all about who these coordinator hires are, especially the OC coordinator, because this guy is not an offensive guy. His offenses at Tulane are mediocre, to put it kindly. And they do not win on offense. Okay. And then you have the quote. Did you read the quote? I believe.
Yeah, let's get that on the screen, Dustin, whenever you can.
You have that quote. So, and Dustin's going to put that quote here
there
shortly.
It is.
But you have that quote.
There it is, right there.
Go ahead.
There it is, right there. So we'll read it for those of you who are listening on audio. It's a quote from Jon Sumrall in his introductory statement to the University of Florida. One of my first priorities will be to assemble an incredible staff, including an offensive coordinator who understands that at Florida, having an explosive offense isn't optional. It's mandatory. And an exclamation point at the end of that. And that I think you're right. We have to talk about all this other stuff that's happening around this hire of Jon Sumrall. I believe that Jon Sumrall comes to Florida with a little bit less of an ego than Billy Napier did. And in that respect, I actually think it's good that he's not an offensive coach. And I'll tell you why. Because any ego that he would have about his side of the ball, well, it's not going to be an offense. It's not going to be the side of the ball that Gator fans know and love so dearly to be what gives the Gators their brand identity of scoring tons of points and making you feel bad about yourself. He can totally delegate that without us having to worry that he'll put his hands in there, because we know that's not his expertise. His expertise is defense. And his defenses at Tulane have been mixed, shall we say, very mixed. But they've had enough success that I'm okay with him continuing to have his hands in it, as long as, again, he does what we have talked about him doing, and that's him going out and hiring a big-time defensive coordinator. Now, we've been burned by this thinking before with Billy Napier. Jon Sumrall is not Billy Napier. He's a different guy. He is a lot more energetic. He's almost kind of reminiscent of a Muschamp in the sense that he's got the defensive background and he's very, very fiery. I don't know that he has a temper necessarily, but he's very animated, naturally animated. So that's a difference in personality right there. And it's also not fair to assume that he'll be, for lack of a better word, as dumb as Billy Napier. I mean, we talk about this on the show plenty of times. There's nothing new for those of you who've listened. If you're new, we basically think that Billy Napier has the intellectual capacity of this little doll right here. So it's not a fresh observation that Billy Napier is stupid. But to hold every coach or anyone else who fills his seat to the same lack of expectations of his IQ is not fair to the new coach. I think it is fair to give Sumrall a fair opportunity, or a legit opportunity, to actually do what he says he's going to do, or even what Stricklin says he's going to do in those PR statements that he clearly crafted. On the same note, it's also fair for us to believe it when we see it, because we have been burned before by this AD who continually lies through his teeth to us about everything under the sun, whether it's football, it's the women's basketball scenario. For those of you who want to give yourself a good laugh, go look at his statement. Go Google his statement about Cam Newbauer 6 weeks before Newbauer resigned. Go look at all the lies he told in that. But again, missing the forest for the trees here. The man, Scott Stricklin, is a pathological liar, and he enjoys it. You don't think that's fair for me to say? Go look at his statements. Go look at his press conferences. Go look at the words he has written or spoken or otherwise published, and then compare them to reality and tell me that he does not enjoy lying to this fan base. So it is a combination of these two worlds that I think have to be married here.
Go
ahead.
In the statement from Stricklin, right, announcing the hire, he also mentions offensive football. Okay, so he mentions offensive football.
Yes.
Sumrall mentions offensive football. Even in his video statement, Danny Warfel mentions offensive football. So it's almost like if the narrative spin went out, and like they know, Stricklin knows he's trying to pull one over on the fan base, right?
Yeah.
He knows what the expectations were in this hire. And this is now, like I said earlier, the damage control portion of tonight's evening entertainment that is taking place. But it still concerns me. It scares me, because when you have a defensive-minded coach and then you say, well, it worked out for Saban. Man, Saban is one of one, probably of our lifetime, okay? That's it. So Dan Lanning right now is the best example of this, a defensive-minded guy, Kirby Smart, as well, but they've always been able to get, especially Dan Lanning, has had a lot of luck with his OCs, man, and explosive offenses. Kirby Smart hasn't, okay? Kirby Smart's offenses have been kind of rough and tumble type of offenses. He just has out-talented everybody to the point where it does not matter. Okay. And with the portal now, he'll even tell you it's starting to get tougher to be that way. But they had a dynasty run there along that matches probably Bama. But that's how Kirby has done it. But when you get a defensive-minded coach, you're always married to who he has as his OC and what type of system they're going to run. So,
which is a continual thing, by the way. He could hire a great OC, and the OC leaves in 2 years, and he's got to be He's got to be able to continually find the new hot name as OC. So he won't know with his first hire, but if the OC then leaves in 2 years because he's really rehabilitated, let's take Brian Daboll, for example. I'm a Giants fan, so that's perfect. Brian Daboll, disgraced with New York, needs some time to rehabilitate his image, comes down to Florida. It works great for a year. And then let's say, I don't know, who's terrible this year looking for a new coach. Let's say, let's say that Harbaugh retires, the Baltimore Harbaugh retires in a year, just out of nowhere. Well, he's rehabilitated his image. He's had a great history of success. Lamar Jackson's still there, right? You got a lot of talent in Baltimore you can win with pretty quickly. Let's go get him back. Well, great. Now Florida just lost its OC. Now what do we do?
You got to go hire another one. But ironically, that is exactly what you want. You want to be in a position in which you're hiring a new OC every 2 years. And if you miss on one, and I think that those days of the Bama, Georgia days of just stockpiling talent where it really doesn't matter to have that one rough year with an OC and you could just go again. If you miss on one now, in this portal era where talent is a little bit more spread out now, you're going to have a rough patch. You're going to have a couple down years until you hit again on an OC. And that's what happens when you have a defensive-minded coach. So until I see, first of all, OC hire number one. Until I see OC hire number one, I'm going to temper my expectations because I'm always a go for an offensive-minded coach first. Always. Right. And that's why, to me, it's malpractice what the stuff that I'm hearing about Lincoln Riley to not have even given that coach an interview, to not have him even be a consideration was something that I was concerned about here 3-4 weeks ago when we had this conversation that the question posed you to me was, if it's not Kiffin, then who? And I said, you got to go out west and get Lincoln Riley. But I don't think that I don't think Stricklin has the cojones to do that.
Well, that's where you're wrong, though, because I actually showed you last night. I got a couple of messages from people that said Florida actually did consider Lincoln Riley. And Adrian, do you want to tell the people what it said?
I forgot. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, we're not going to quote it directly because that would be breaching the trust. But basically, Stricklin didn't like him. I am authorized to say that much. I am authorized to state that much of this person's opinion. Stricklin did not like Lincoln Riley.
And you know what?
They didn't get very far. They didn't go a whole lot of steps down the road in the process, but they did at least get him in the door, and they didn't like him.
And you know what? He didn't like Lane Kiffin either, man. He did not like Lane Kiffin either. And there's a narrative out there that says that, like I said, Stricklin sabotaged this whole thing, okay? And this is where he wanted to end up at the end of the day. Me personally, I still think Lane Kiffin played the University of Florida. I still think that is my narrative, and that's what I'm going to believe. And any spin put out there by any one of the Gator beat writers and stuff, that's just propaganda, okay? That's all that is. To me, Lane Kiffin played the University of Florida for what I've said here before, the last 7 to 8 years that he wanted this job, and Stricklin told him, no, you're too immature to even be considered a coach at the University of Florida. So I think maybe what I will never know, though, is if LSU hadn't come into the picture, what would have happened? Because I think there's a possibility if LSU hadn't come into the picture, I think Lane would have let bygones be bygones and really considered Florida. okay, against Ole Miss. But once LSU came into the picture, man, that I think to me gave Lane the opportunity to stick it to Stricklin. And I think he took that opportunity to stick it to Stricklin, knowing he had the LSU job in the bag. And the only thing he didn't get out of this was being able to coach in the playoffs, which that's a whole nother topic. I think Ole Miss is going to live to regret that decision for a long time. But that's another other topic.
All right, so again, just to bring everything back together here, there are two separate conversations here. Conversation number one is, can Jon Sumrall, and even we can break that into two conversations too, will Jon Sumrall work at the University of Florida? That is conversation number one. That is its own conversation. Conversation number two is, was this coaching search engineered in a competent fashion? The answer to that is a resounding hell no. Jon Sumrall can still work at the University of Florida. He could be the next Nick Saban. That does not mean that this coaching search was pulled off in a way that a lot of Gator fans feel good about. Those two are not mutually exclusive. This coaching search was effed up beyond my belief. And again, I will say Scott Stricklin is a guy who, what can go wrong with him, what he can mess up, he will mess up. And I will even state as much as he is a pathological liar. I'll just go ahead and say that. Again, very, very quickly, I do want to go back to, just to give you guys who are listening, who don't really care to Google it, who don't really follow women's basketball, I'll give you a 30-second example of just what a pathological liar Scott Stricklin is. On June 1st of 2021, Scott Stricklin extends Cam Newbauer, the women's basketball coach, with a quote that says, quote, "Cam is building his program the right way and making steady progress. It's important that he have the time needed to continue that progress." 6 weeks later, Newbauer is fired. Why? Because reports come out of Cam Newbauer committing acts of abuse on the women's basketball players. Reports that were nothing new to Scott Stricklin and the University of Florida brass. These reports compounded over time. It was just that Scott Stricklin had thought that they'd put an end to that kind of behavior. That, oh, there was a problem, but we fixed it. And we're going to sweep this all under the rug now, and no one has to know. And we're going to play nice in public with this nice little statement that says that Cam is making steady progress with the way he's building this program. Progress that, by the way, includes Cam Newbauer having the worst record in the history of women's basketball at the University of Florida, which is not a good program to begin with. And this guy, Newbauer, manages to one-up all the others who came before him at this program with the worst record in the history of the program. That's the man that Scott Stricklin went out in public and said, this man is making steady progress building this program. It's important he have more time to continue that progress. Again, which featured the worst record in the history of the program. That is what Scott Stricklin is capable of doing. He is a man who is capable of standing in a torrential downpour and telling the world, nothing to see here. There's no rain. It's a perfectly beautiful sunny day. That is what we have with our athletic director. So when I see stuff of him saying, well, I understand that the expectation of Florida is offense and points, and I understand the expectation of Florida is championships. I see that and I go, yeah, maybe you do understand that, maybe you don't. You don't give a bleep about actually ensuring that those expectations are met. I know that because that is your past behavior. We have seen it with Cam Newbauer. We saw it with Mike White when he extended him in 2021 after a dreadful loss to Oral Roberts that embarrassed the program. We saw it with Billy Napier last year when you said, I envision this man being the head coach of Florida for a long, long time, and telling everyone about how the championship resolve on this roster. Actually, let me Google that. I'll come up with the exact quote later in the show just to give you guys the exact line. I don't want to misquote. It's bad enough as it is. I don't want to just paraphrase it. But he basically said that, yeah, we trust in Billy Napier to build a championship program here. What happens? Completely falls off the rails the very next year. So, long story short, there's no objective reason to trust this guy. No reason to trust what he says. No reason to trust who he hires. No reason to trust any of the off-field or off-court or behind-the-scenes people he hires. There's no reason to even trust him to make an introductory statement, because God knows how many lies are going to be spewed in that debacle that is coming Monday afternoon. So that's what we've got in that conversation. Now let's turn our attention fully to the Jon Sumrall at Florida conversation, because like you said, he is the coach. He is going to be the guy in charge of the program. I think we have to give him a fair shot to at least make a statement of some sort with his first couple of years. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, you asked those two questions just a little while ago about can Jon Sumrall be successful at Florida? And the second question was about the coaching hire, right? About the process. And that, but they're very much not mutually exclusive. They are very much inclusive with one another, because that coaching hire was so botched, okay? I think you right off the bat set up Sumrall behind the eight ball. And that's going to affect whether or not he could be successful, right? Because I don't think the buy-in is going to be there from all the boosters that would have been there had the hire been Lane Kiffin. That's stuff that I'm hearing out there, okay? So if he doesn't have that initial buy-in like Lane Kiffin would have had, it's going to be tougher, man. It's going to be flat out tougher. It's going to be tough to retain the players on this roster. It's going to be tough to secure players from the portal. It's going to be tough to recruit players out of high school. It all depends how much resources you have, which means how much money do you have. And if you don't have the buy-in because you pissed off a lot of your fan base and a lot of your boosters with this botched BS hire process that you had turnkey, I've heard anywhere from $500,000 to $2 million was paid to this organization. And I cannot believe that their number 2 coach was Jon Sumrall. I don't know. I just can't believe that. But this is where we're at. So I think that's going to affect whether or not he'll be successful. Hopefully, which he probably will, I'm sure, hit it out of the park tomorrow at the press conference. He's going to win the presser. The number one thing that I'm looking for, besides the OC hire, obviously, but right off the bat, if he wants to get continued buy-in from this fan base or get immediate buy-in, especially from some of the boosters out there, you better get some of these tweets out there real fast from a one Jaden Bogg, a one Miles Graham, a one VB3, a one Dallas Wilson. You better get those, let's run it back tweets, all right, out there fast, like in the next week, okay, 2 weeks. Whatever it takes, you better get those tweets out fast. Because if you don't get those tweets out from some of those main guys out fast, man, it's going to be real rocky here in Gainesville for one Jon Sumrall. And I would like to say one Scott Stricklin, but the dude just gave himself a pay raise and a contract extension. We don't have a president. We have an interim president. So I don't know if the guy's walking around giving himself pay raises and contract extensions and setting himself golden parachutes for when he retires. I don't think he feels he's in any danger whatsoever. So,
which, by the way, let's stop the rhetoric that you need a president to fire the AD. Let's just stop being intellectually dishonest. Let's just stop lying to ourselves. Okay, LSU managed to do it. Like, I don't want to hear that ever again. Well, we don't have a president. Who's going to fire him? Bull bleep. Family show. We're not going to say the second syllable there. Garbage. That is hot garbage.
But as far as giving himself the whole pay raise, contract extension,
Ken Fox rubber stamped that on his way out the door. Let's be honest about that too. So, there's no one for him to be accountable for and to unless Governor Ron DeSantis steps in and takes action. Again, we're not going to get political on the show, but that's what it's going to take because LSU had their governor do it. Louisiana's Governor Landry did that with their AD Scott Woodward. So let's just throw that out the window. You can do it without a president. You just need buyout or buy-in from people who just won't give it to you, like a Maury Hosseini, like a Rahul Patel, etc. So that's what has to happen. It's not that Scott Stricklin cannot be fired without a president. It's that the people who would be doing the firing if the president would not do it himself, if those people will not do it, then it's not going to happen. Maybe those people, Patel and Hosseini, maybe they need to feel a little bit of the heat.
Yeah. So then spearheading all of this, right? A lot of moving parts for this to be successful, right? You got the new coach. You're now going to have to get a really good home run OC hire. You got the GM, which there's questions about that. At the time that he was in Jacksonville, there's a lot of issues with, his record there, players he drafted. I think only 2 out of 8 first-round draft picks got their second contract over there. But then he went to Philadelphia where, Weissman, former Florida grad.
Howie Roseman
is the GM there, considered one of the best in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
So he did 4 or 5 years under Roseman, former UF guy, like I said. So I'm sure he gave his stamp of approval to Stricklin that said, he's your guy. I taught him everything I know in the last 5 years. So we'll see how that goes. And then you got all this stuff behind the scenes with the big boosters, with your Gary Condrens and all that good stuff that came out with that, and all the boosters that are upset. So you have a lot of moving parts for this to be successful. And the one person that is literally captaining this ship on all of that, it's not Sumrall. It's one Scott Stricklin.
Yeah.
So that could make a lot of people very scared.
For the reasons we just talked about.
For all the reasons we talked about, you're depending on one Scott Stricklin to steward this ship and get all these entities going in the same direction. And man, I don't know, man.
Well, all right. I'll say this. I did not want Jon Sumrall as the hire. I didn't. But he's here. So with that said, here are a few things I will point to that do make me feel a little bit less terrible. Yes, David Caldwell in Jacksonville ended terribly. I will not even attempt to sugarcoat or downplay that. It was a disaster the way it ended. He also had a hand in building probably the best team in Jaguars franchise history. 2017 AFC Championship game appearance team. Miles Jack, was he down? Was he not down? Painful memory, I know, for the Jags. Should have beaten the Patriots in that game and been to the Super Bowl. He had a big hand in building that team. So that plus him being Howie Roseman's certainly one of 2 right-hand men in Philly. I grew up in New Jersey, as I talk about a bit on this show. I'm friends with a lot of people from all over the state because I grew up there. They're pissed. Eagle fans are pissed that they lost him. So that tells me something good right there that, well, wait a minute. If you're so angry at the fact that he's no longer there, your loss is going to be our gain, right? And the answer that I got from the Eagle fan friends is basically, yeah, pretty much. We're just kind of coping. We still have our main guy, Howie Roseman. I don't know why we're that mad. It's not like you took Roseman from us, but yeah, that does sting. That's not the whole body behind the operation, but it's a hand of it. You basically just chopped off one of our hands.
Sure.
So now we got to go regenerate that hand. So we're mad. So that's good for us. That makes us feel a little bit better. Particularly the thing that my Eagle friends point out the most is he was the cap management guy. Howie Roseman oversees everything with the Eagles front office. This guy specialized in the cap management and the new age scouting stuff. Like, how much are the players worth? Howie Roseman would go out and oversee every piece of the operation, but you had a talent evaluator. You had different scouts go to different parts of the country to scout. Like, you couldn't have one person go to all 50 states and scout every player from every school. So you had regional people who do all that, hear all that, and give Roseman the reports as to who needs to be scouted. Roseman would then go do it. And then there's the free agency portion of it, like the existing guys in the NFL who you have to put together a salary cap for, right? Well, there's no real hard cap in college football anymore. I know that the schools are going to rev share only a certain amount, but let's face it, if Gary Condren wanted to pay $5 million a player, in theory, right, some school could do that. So Roseman is the guy who is going to put his stamp of approval on everything, and he'll get his hands in. He's a hands-on GM there, or front office guy, whatever you want to call him there. He's hands-on there. David Caldwell's the guy that says, okay, this is the number we have to be under, though.
Yeah,
we
exactly
have to make sure, and if we can't, here's our plan B. He doesn't just go back to Roseman and say, nope, sorry, not going to work. Sorry, no. What he'll do, what he would do in Philly was, no, Howie, that's not going to work financially. But here is a plan B that will work, and present it to him and say, what do you think, Howie? So that's good experience to have.
No doubt. In college, first of all, this whole GM in college is a new thing, Yeah. I said a couple years back that this GM position for college, what you want on that resume is NFL experience, and it's because of that. It's because of cap management, which to me is just another word for roster management, okay? Yeah. And that's what you need in college, because I think you have to have a relationship in college between the GM and the head coach, that the head coach does football, does the coaching, does the recruiting, the scouting of players, like this guy's the guy that I want, but it's the GM in college who, let's face it, has to know how much money is available per year. Okay, what is my payroll? What is my payroll that I'm working with? And if the quarterback is taking up however many millions and this guy's taking up a couple million, do we really have the funds to go after the 5-star running back? Okay, so do I want? I keep forgetting Sumrall. I keep wanting to say Sumrall.
Sumrall. It's two syllables, y'all. There's no relationship to Pat Sumrall. It is Sumrall. Syllable one is Sum. Syllable two is Rawl. Sumrall.
John Madden and Pat Sumrall are always going to be Thanksgiving for me, man, because that was Thanksgiving dinner watching John Madden and Pat Sumrall. But anyways, do you want then Sumrall to waste his time recruiting that 5-star when you don't have the funds for him? That's when the GM and the head coach have to be in communication and say, listen, bro, we don't got the money for that 5-star from Virginia. So you got to look at these 4 stars right here. We got the funds for them. So these 4 stars, this guy from Georgia, this guy from Florida, this guy from Texas, let's recruit those 3 guys. We got money for them. That's the relationship you got to have in college. And if he has that background, I did not know that. If you're telling me that your friends, your contacts in Philly are saying that was his thing in Philly, was the cap management, that makes me happy. I just got that from you right now, and that gives me now some confidence in that GM hire, because that is what you need in college, because that's what some of these head coaches, that's what Billy was trying to do. Billy was trying to do everything. He was trying to be the talent evaluator, the accountant, the freaking play caller, the OC, and even make the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Oh wait, that was McElwain. But anyway,
the other failure.
I knew that. I was testing you. But so Billy wanted to do all that, and there's coaches out there that want to do all that, and that's not good, man. That's what you need a GM for in today's world. So you telling me that makes me a lot happier about that GM hire, man. Gives me a lot more confidence in that.
And so, again, the big difference between college and pro is, ironically, college, which is supposed to be amateur athletics, there's no salary cap yet. Hopefully one day we'll get there. But until there is, the salary cap that exists is a soft one. It's basically how many dollars are we able to take out of our boosters' pockets before we piss them off to the point where they say no plus F you plus no more money for you ever again? Like, you have to manage these soft limits, these soft boundaries. That it's not a hard set boundary where if you eclipse this number, you have to pay a massive penalty and there's all kinds of restrictions. It's relationship building too. That's a part of this. You have to be able to stay in communication, not only with your head coach, but with your boosters. You have to be able to make sure that you're nowhere close to that threshold where you irritate your boosters to the point where they're not going to give you money anymore. And this is where we go back to Gary Condren's involvement. It matters how much he likes Jon Sumrall. As much as the rest of us don't, if we get a head coach that the rest of the fan base likes a lot less than our primary choice, but that our number one booster likes more than our number one choice, and we're able to pay him basically half the salary that we're paying that we would have paid the main guy, and this new guy and our top booster is willing and able to dig that much deeper into his pockets for this guy, then we might have a better chance of succeeding. Because if our top booster was not in alignment with our new head coach being Lane Kiffin, and thus he was unwilling to dig deep into his pockets, or at least as deep as he would now with Sumrall for Kiffin. If he was not willing to go the extra mile financially to support Kiffin with the athletes he needed and the staffers he needed, both position coaches and the Katie Turner type people, who, by the way, I really hope we keep, but those types of people who do those types of jobs, if Gary Condren's not on board, then unless someone like Hugh Hathcock steps up and fills that void and gives that much more money, Kiffin's screwed, because it's an X's and O's business. Billy Napier was pretty dumb, but he was right about one thing. It is a talent acquisition business. He got that exactly right. He just didn't do it well enough to be able to overcompensate for his stupidity as an X's and O's coach, but he was right about that, and he did a decent job actually acquiring that talent. David Caldwell is the guy who's going to be in Hathcock's ear, in Condren's ear, in all these other big top boosters' ear, and the next rung down, the people like the KC Gator guy, right? The people in my family who are probably a couple of rungs down from that. But he's going to be in all of their ears telling them, hey, we're looking at this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy, that guy. Here are our options. What do we think? And he'll probably make the final call because the boosters are the ones who just fund it. And Caldwell is the one who's actually on UF's payroll to make these personnel decisions. But he has to be able to play these relationships well enough that he's able to get the money he needs to fund the roster that our new head coach wants. And in long story short, I will take the less proven head coach. And in fact, I will take the less desired head coach for reasons fair or unfair. I will take the lesser head coach in exchange for the unquestionably better roster, because we are able to fund that unquestionably better roster, because all of our boosters are willing to pay for that unquestionably better roster. Yeah. Dave Caldwell is the glue that's going to hold all of that together.
And by the way, football's not the only sport that really needs a GM, man, because all these guys are getting paid, basketball, baseball. And one thing that we know, Neil, is that most of these coaches hate doing that. They hate asking for money. They hate going to the big boosters and having to make that phone call and say, hey, man, I need this, and this for a point guard. I need this, and this for my number one Friday night starter. I need this, and this for a wide receiver. They hate that. Give them a call, and they'll be glad to go and have lunch with the main boosters, mingle with them at the cocktail party. But to make that phone call, to ask for money, these coaches don't want to do that, man. That's not what they got into this business for. All right? They got into this business to coach, to mentor young athletes, all right? And to be a part of a sport that they probably grew up playing and love, not to honestly go begging for money. So if you have a GM that could be that buffer to do that, man, that's going to give a head coach in whatever sport you have so much peace of mind to know that they have that buffer between you and the money bags, because that's what they are, man, the money bags. And
buffer is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
I use the word glue as an analogy to like hold together like a house of popsicle sticks, but buffer is probably the perfect way to put it. You need the middleman. This guy is the middleman. He's not just the worthless sack of garbage that we currently have, Jacob LaFrance, who just goes and pisses the fan base off at every available turn. Sunbelt Billy and the boys. By the way, the answer to that now, the ... you left there, Jacob, for me to you, the end of that sentence, Sunbelt Billy and the boys are now unemployed because no one's going to want you, at least not at this level. So have fun, Jacob. Pack your bags and enjoy that, thinking about that as you get out of here. So that's that. We now have a real GM. That's the point we're getting at here. We don't just have a figurehead, a worthless nobody doing no actual work there. We have a real GM with real NFL experience coming in and managing this roster that's going to be put together. Okay, Adrian, there's a lot more to get to. We will have a lot more time to unpack all of this. But couple things before we end the show. Number one, we are going to watch Tulane complete their season with Jon Sumrall. He will be finishing out the year there. So I think one thing you have to do is, obviously, the first thing you have to do in Gainesville is get Jaden Ball back. And then you've got to get back guys like Aaron Childs, Miles Graham, Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown. I like Amir Jackson. I think that's a piece you want to get back for next year too. But then maybe go talk to some of your juniors, make sure they don't go pro, all that. The very next thing he has to do, once all that's done with retaining the current core that you have right now, the very next thing you have to do is you have to go to Billy Gonzalez and shake his hand and say, you know what? I respect what you do, Billy. You've got a job on my staff as long as you want it. You are going to remain interim. This is me as Jon Sumrall talking now. Billy, you're going to remain interim coach while I continue to go all in with Tulane and try to coach them to an Addy. You've got a job here waiting for you as the receivers coach once I arrive. But until then, you remain the interim coach and you hold this team together. I am putting this in your hands. You are my second in command until otherwise told.
This is where your glue analogy is apropos, right?
Yeah.
This is where you need a Billy G to be that glue between you getting into town and taking over. And guess what? What's this week, Neil? Early signing period, ain't it? Ain't it Wednesday? Early signing period? So early signing period starts. So, I mean, this college football calendar is an absolute just disaster of a joke. That's another show. It'll be about another hour that we could talk about that crap. But, you know, that's just the calendar that you're dealt with. So you need Billy G. Based on everything we've talked about, man, about Billy G on this show and why we respect him so much, you need to make that exactly what you said, man. Make him the offer. You normally always have at least one or two coaches that you hold over from the previous coaching staff. That's like anyone, anywhere. They always want to hold over one or two guys who could provide that bridge factor from the old administration to the new. Go ahead.
Note that Napier didn't. Billy Gonzalez was actually kicked out of town.
Yeah.
He came back. We went for got Kerry Colbert. I guess
he didn't keep anybody. He didn't keep anybody from Dan's staff, from Mullen's staff. Wow.
Gonzalez came back. He was a rehire after he spent a year away from the program.
I would definitely want to see Billy G retained. Yeah, I definitely want to see Billy G retained. I mean, normally these guys have their own recruiting people and stuff like that. But the one that you mentioned, you know, I hope that they bring her back. I'm having a block again.
Katie Turner. And look, you need the recruitniks. You need the recruitniks to stay, because that was the one thing Napier actually did well. You need the recruitniks to stay and tell them and publicly make a show of it. Say, we are retaining Katie Turner. we are retaining Billy Gonzalez so that those people can go do their jobs and go out and recruit and keep this recruiting class together. Not to mention this current roster together so that they don't all just go to the portal and other teams can raid our entire roster. You need these people to be able to be that glue by making these public proclamations. We love Katie Turner. We're going to keep Katie Turner. We love Billy Gonzalez. We're keeping Billy Gonzalez. Make the show of it so that recruits can believe it when you go and make those final pitches. Because like you said, with the messed up calendar that we have, we got to just do the best we can. And that's how we do it. So that's that. The next thing I want to point out to those who say that Sumrall does not have an explosive offense at Tulane and you're worried about it. I agree. I'm worried. I'm worried more because Scott Stricklin called attention to it and he is full of you-know-what than I am the fact that he doesn't have a great offense at Tulane. Because here's what I'll point out. Tulane doesn't have an explosive offense because they don't need one to be successful at Tulane. They can get away with the ground and pound stuff, the boring stuff. That's going to win them enough games. And Tulane cannot afford to pay for things that they don't need. They don't have the budget. They don't have the booster base to be able to afford luxuries. They pay for absolute bare bones necessities at Tulane. That is their financial situation. Florida is an entirely different situation, as we all know. So me seeing that his offense is boring AF at Tulane does not tell me anything about what his offense is going to look like at Florida because he didn't have to.
It will, though, if he hires his OC. If all this OC talk is
but I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to get outside coordinators at Florida. So. I really don't believe he's going to hire. He's just going to bring along his staffers.
Because they run, guess what? A lot of 12 personnel.
Yes, I know. The dreaded 12. So that's the last thing I want to point out. All right, let's end the show with a little segment that we talked about. We kind of fleshed this out on my car ride back from Florida. Enjoying watching the Gators beat the Noles. No more. No bowl for you. We'll talk about that in a separate show later in the week. But that was fun doing that to mouthy Seminole fans. But yeah, as I was driving back, we talked about this, and we're going to call it Truth or Cope. These are some of the things we've seen online from Gator fans to try to make themselves feel better about losing out on Lane Kiffin and winding up with Jon Sumrall. And we're going to go back and forth and read them off. And then we're going to go and give our opinions on whether there's legitimacy to these things or if they're just complete doses of copium. So truth or cope. All right. Number one, Lane Kiffin never won anything everywhere. Lane Kiffin never won anything anywhere he's been, including this year at Ole Miss, because he's jumping ship before he can get a chance to, because he's scared he's going to get blasted, right? So goes the cope. Why should we believe he would have won at Florida? Adrian, is that legit or is that cope?
I mean, come on. I've wanted Lane for 8 years, and I've been hearing that for 8 years. And that's just pure cope, man. I mean, literally, there's only, 3 guys that have won national championships that are coaching, right? Dabo, John Day, and obviously Kirby. So, and that's the only winning that matters is the big enchilada, the national championship. Is he going to win a national championship at FAU? Is he going to win a national championship at Ole Miss? Just the fact that he even has them in position to be in the playoffs, have their best season in 60 years, just goes to tell you what type of coach Lane Kiffin is, man. And, the fact that he went to LSU and that we whiffed on him is not going to change my opinion. Yeah, I think Lane Kiffin is one hell of a football coach.
I think that's cope too. I will say we'll find out pretty quick at LSU. LSU is the place. I mean, I guess maybe USC, but LSU is a better job than USC. So LSU and Florida, to me, have always been jobs that are on par with each other. I think that LSU has actually lapped Florida now because we have this bumbling idiot as our AD who actually, no, you know what? I wouldn't even call him an idiot. He's a saboteur. He's not stupid. He's smart. His goal is to destroy this program. I mean, I'm only kind of joking when I say that. There's legitimacy to it. Story for another day. LSU's a really good job. You can win there. If he doesn't win at LSU, then it'll be legit, and we'll look pretty smart for even talking about this on the show. And the people who said that on Twitter and Facebook will look pretty smart for putting that out there. If he wins anything at LSU, like if he even gets to a national championship game, or if he wins the SEC, or even if he goes to the national semifinals, that's when we know, yeah, that's coping. But I think that's what's going to happen. I think he is a great hire for them. His offensive mind is unmatched. Yeah, I think that's cope. All right, number 2, Lane Kiffin is toxic. Look at how the entire saga played out with Ole Miss. Do you really want that at Florida? Do you really want him to be the head coach of Florida where every day is a soap opera? Adrian, is that legit or is that copium?
Well, that is legit. But yes, I would still want that at Florida if it leads me to winning. That's all I care about is winning. And if in 3 years he puts me through that whole scenario with him going to the NFL, and I think that we talked about that, then so be it. In 3 or 4 years, then that's the chance that you take. Okay, and we talked about that with our little analogy of the snake and the duck getting across the river. Okay, yeah. Leopard ain't gonna change his stripes, man. And when you sign up for the Lane train, okay, you know it comes with these bumps and dips and stuff like that. And that's all part of the experience. So yeah, so there is truth to that. He is toxic. But a lot of people called Steve Spurrier toxic, and we won a lot of championships. And Urban Meyer has been called toxic, and we won 2 championships. So.
Well, they were not so overtly toxic that it ruined every single day of watching their pro. I mean, look, Kiffin gave them a bunch of good years in a row. But like even when he goes to Tennessee and he gets golf balls and mustard thrown at him, like there's a reason why that happened, because it's in his past. His past met the future. He did things in his past, like he left Tennessee after 1 year for USC that earned him those golf balls and mustard bottles. So say the people who threw them. So if he comes to Florida, and let's say Florida goes to Ole Miss in a couple of years, right? So if he comes to Florida and Florida goes to Ole Miss and he's hit in the head with another golf ball or mustard bottle or whatever it is, right? Then again, you have Kiffin's drama being the main story. So I understand Florida fans not wanting that. I also happen to like a little bit of crazy, not a ton, but I like a little bit of crazy. I like a little taste of it, a little like a swirl of it, like a highlight of it. Say. So I think that it's true, but I'm going to say it is cope in the sense that we're trying to use that as justification for not hiring him. I'm with you that I'm willing to take that gamble. I'm also not Scott Stricklin because unlike him, I actually want the Gators to win, but I can understand that line of logic. Okay.
Oh, by the way, and this is not for Sumrall because he looks more like a Muschamp Dan Lanning type of intensity. Yeah. But the further I get away from these Urban Meyer years, the more willing I am to deal with as much toxicity as you want to give me, okay? Just to get away from this proverbial, what we've called on here before, this loser stench that our football program has had for like 15 years now, dude. So I could care less about toxicity. Next.
So this one we actually talked about on the show, but I've seen it a few times on social, so I'll put it back out there. We're paying Sumrall half what we would have paid Lane Kiffin. We now have that extra money at our expense to be able to give ourselves a head start on not only our assistant staff, but the roster. What do you think? Is that cope or is that truth?
That's a good one, man, because that could be cope right there, honestly, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier, because you botched this hire so bad. Are you really going to have that money? Are you really going to have that money from the boosters? Or are they going to just take a step back and wait and see how things play out? Because if you had hired Kiffin, if Kiffin was hopping on that plane, that he hopped on that plane a few hours ago there in Oxford to Baton Rouge, if he was hopping on that plane and landed in Gainesville here in the next 30 minutes or so, man, Florida's coffers would have been stuffed already right now with funds, okay? I don't think that's going to be there for Sumrall. So we'll see. So it could be Cope, man. It could be Cope.
It's total Cope. It's 100% Cope. There is legitimacy to it. This is why I come up with a segment, because it's hard to make these binary calls on them. It is 100% Cope. It could be true, especially with the next bullet point or the next truth or Cope we're going to get to. It could be very, very legit. But as far as fans tossing that out there as a reactionary measure to this silver medal we got by hiring our number 2 choice, it is complete and absolute Cope. So
and Neil, we're going to find out real quick.
Yes, I was going to say that next. We're going to know within a couple of months.
No, I'm talking about even sooner. Because if we go bargain basement shopping for an OC, okay, and we start losing some of these players, and we don't get these let's run it back tweets from some of these players we've talked about, that means, guess what, brother? That means, and this ain't the money sign that the student section does on third downs. That means we ain't got none.
I hate that. We're not crickets. We don't make noise by rubbing fingers together. It doesn't work that way.
But it means we don't have none. We don't got no money. People ain't giving no money. So
this is what I'll say. It could turn out to be true, but at this juncture of time right now, to say is complete copium. We can revisit in 3 months, and it could turn out to be a genius line of logic, a brilliant thought to have had. But as of this point in time right now, with the facts we have at our disposal right now, it is complete cope. All right, last one. Actually, no, second to last one. This is a doozy, and we talked about this one too. Don't you want someone your biggest booster is on board with? Or do you want your head coach and your biggest booster, i.e. the guy who funds your roster, to constantly be at odds with each other? Go.
Man, okay.
It's a good segment, right? It's good thought-provoking conversation. And by the way, y'all, let us know down below what you think. We want to hear your thoughts too. So in the comment section on YouTube, as Adrian ponders his answer, go ahead and leave your thoughts.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I think that's a little bit of cope, okay? Because who's running the program, man? When it's all said and done, I mean, you know, I think back to stuff that's been said about Auburn, right? Auburn has been said that their boosters there create such a toxic environment that nothing could be done, and their boosters are always, you know, making all these decisions without the information, just going on their gut feel. I mean, there's a narrative out there that Turnkey, that Sumrall was not the number 2 choice, and that this was just a gut feel move by a certain booster or a certain couple of boosters. They just, you know, really like this guy. Maybe in that interview that happened or never happened or was a smokescreen or whatever the hell that was.
The false start of the November 19th. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, maybe he just knocked some people's socks off, and they're like, it's this guy no matter what. And if you have a booster or two say it's this guy no matter what, and this check is dependent on that, that's tough. So I guess that falls under copeness, man.
I'm gonna go with truth only because of what I said earlier, where if your top booster isn't aligned with the head coach and he doesn't want him here, recruiting gets so much more difficult. Your funds get limited so much quicker. And then you got to go like the collective route. You got to go crowdfunding for it. And if one booster doesn't like him, it's not that easy for him to poison the well with the rest of the boosters. And it just gets really, really messy. So I'm not even sure that that's 100% true. It might be, it probably is, but we don't know that for sure. So I'm willing to say that that's true in theory. If it is legit that Gary Condren really did not want him, look, we need his money. So just being straight up with y'all, we need the guy's money to be able to fund a big time roster that can compete for a CFP. Like I said, I will take the lesser proven head coach in exchange for the significantly more valuable roster, which is going to be funded with money from the top booster.
Which, by the way, if what I think happened, which is just entertainment purposes only, my opinion, that Lane played us and they finally realized that. I think that the whole Condren thing was just a smokescreen. And he took the hit and said, let me be the one that takes the hit. And it'll be me who didn't like Lane, quote unquote. And I really like the number 2 choice better, Sumrall. Okay. And that's what we went with. Let me take the hit because I'm the money guy. And when it's all said and done, nobody is going to come after the money guy. Yeah. Okay. So I think that was all just a smokescreen. And it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it that way, how all that Condren audio got out there and stuff like that. I think it was all just a smokescreen to cover, the botched tire and in essence to cover Stricklin's ass. I mean Stricklin's butt.
Yeah, we know. It's okay. You can say that on the show. We're PG-13. We're not R-rated. I mean, look, I pride myself, and the whole brand is predicated on keep it respectful, but keep it real. I never care what I say about people as long as there's fact and logic to back it up. I do not have a bad opinion of Gary Condren. I actually like him. He does a lot for the baseball program, hence why his name is on the stadium. If this is all true, again, I'm also a law and order guy. I believe in due process and going through and finding all the fact and discovery phase and all that. But if it is indeed true that Gary Condren sabotaged the Stricklin hire in the method that it was said to have happened, I really don't like it. But again, I go back to I will take the lesser coach in exchange for the more proven or the more talented roster, which is going to be funded by this big booster. So look,
makes sense.
I mean, look, the guy, Casey Gator, may have been held hostage when he typed that apology and retraction, but he's also kind of right. He's right. UF is nothing without Gary Condren and Hugh Hathcock. Those two together, you need them both. So look, he's done a lot of good things for this program. I'm not going to sit here and defend the sabotage of Stricklin, or the sabotage of Kiffin. It's very late. I'm not going to defend the sabotage of Kiffin if indeed that happened. But again, if given the choice between Kiffin and Condren is not on board, meaning his money's not coming to help Kiffin, or Sumrall and Gary Condren's money is going to be able to be tapped into for this talented roster, given the two choices that are on the table for me, I choose Sumrall and Condren being in alignment. So it's difficult. The ideal situation is not an option. Ideally, it's Kiffin and Condren's on board, but that's not a choice. We have to choose A or B, and I choose Sumrall and Condren. Okay, last one. We don't know how anything is going to play out. Kiffin could go to LSU and be a massive failure. Sumrall could come to UF and be a national championship winning coach. We just don't know. You first.
That's true. Yeah, because it's hard. It is hard to hire head coaches, and a national championship head coach does not fall off trees, man. You try and mitigate it as best possible, right? And obviously, Kiffin, is the better mitigated possibility, being a Power 4 coach, having the record that he has at Ole Miss, giving that program the best year that they've had in 60 years, having them basically in the college football playoff, in comparison to Sumrall, who's coming from that group of 5, defensive-minded coach, yada, yada, yada. We've gone through all that already. So, yeah, there is truth to that. There's definitely truth to that. You just try and mitigate it as best as possible. And without a doubt, LSU right now on Sunday, November 30th, LSU made the better hire. Yeah. No doubt. Now, 3 years from now, is it still going to be that way? We don't know. We really don't know. No one could say. But for right now, yeah, LSU made the better hire. But everybody else thinks Florida's hire is an A+ also. So,
yeah. I think it's cope coming from the people that I've seen it come from, but there's a lot of truth to it for the reasons you just mentioned. We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't have a time machine. There's no way of knowing this stuff. You could have home run hires on paper that just like hell. Brian Kelly was deemed to be a home run hire at the time. It turned into a disaster, but the moment it was made, LSU fans were ecstatic about it. So and Billy Napier, he was the top choice. He previously had interest from Auburn and from South Carolina, 2 SEC schools. So it seemed great. Builds the program. He's a great recruiter. Seemed like a home run.
Tell me what was the difference between Muschamp and Kirby Smart? There was no difference. One guy bombed.
Well, there was one though. There's one difference.
What?
The one difference
at the time of the hire. At the time of the hire.
Oh no. Okay, sure. Time of the hire.
At the time of the hire, there was no difference between both of those guys. I thought Florida had knocked that so far out of the park. Mm-hmm. I was already counting how many championships we were going to add to 3. I was thinking Muschamp will get like 2 or 3 within about 8 years, probably, and probably compete for a couple other ones.
And his second year seemed like it.
And Muschamp bombed, and Kirby Smart is going to go down as one of the greatest coaches in college football history. And at the time of the hire, there was absolutely zero difference, between both of them.
I would say Kirby was a little bit more proven as a DC, but that's splitting hairs.
I mean, big time. It's splitting the hairs I got on my head. How about that?
Yeah, right. I wasn't going to say that, but you did. All right. So for now, that's all we've got. Like we said in our FSU recap, our instant recap show, we'll talk more about the game. Jaden Ball's record, not quite setting, but record threatening night, number 2 now in single game rush yards for Florida against FSU. I will tell you guys, I will give you guys a very quick announcement. The poll closed. I ran this on Twitter. I was completely 50-50 on this. Should I do the annual FSU Conquered by Everyone video? I really didn't want to do it, in part because, look at Florida this year. They're just awful. But I put it up to a poll, and you guys voted yes, 75 to 25%, so pretty overwhelming. You guys want the Conquer video? I'll do it. I don't know when I'll do it, but I don't know that I'll have it up by Christmas time because it's already December now. But I will do that. So you guys win. I put it up to the people.
Neil Shulman for the people.
For the people.
Hey, Neil, real quick, and this is out of the blue. Anything you would like to see come out of that press conference tomorrow? Anything from either Stricklin or from Sumrall? Anything? We've probably talked about a lot of it, but anything that we might not have said that you might want to hear from one of them? Anything?
The only thing I ever want to hear come out of Scott Stricklin's mouth is I have booked myself a one-way trip to the sun.
Okay, other than that, which probably won't come out of his mouth.
You got the point. I don't ever want to hear him speak again. There's nothing he can ever say or do at this point in time. There's nothing he could ever say that I would be happy to hear. But
it's going to be probably typical AD speak. He's not going to really
we talked about this. He's a liar, dude. We talked about this. I read you the quote from the Cam Newbauer. You know what? Let's do the Billy Napier one. That's a great way to cap the show. Listen to this one. Listen to this. In his press release where he said Billy Napier's coming back after we lost to Georgia last year, he says, among other things, UF's commitment to excellence in a championship caliber program is unwavering. Yeah, that's why Stricklin has never really shared anything from social media from Florida Victorious. That's why he tells people not to donate to NIL, but instead to donate to the stadium renovation that 99% of the fan base doesn't even want. It's why he can't even be bothered until a couple months ago when people finally told him to do it, to never even wear Florida Victorious stuff on the rare instances where he actually shows his face in public. And then he goes on to say, in these times of change across college athletics, we are dedicated to a disciplined, stable approach that is focused on long-term, sustained success for Gator athletes, recruits, and fans. I am confident that Billy will meet the challenges and opportunities ahead. We will work alongside him to support any changes needed to elevate Gator football. As college athletics evolves, UF is committed to embracing innovation and strategy, ensuring the Gators thrive in today's competitive landscape. That is what he said last October. What has happened since then? You got the cute little mirage to end the year, and then the worst Gator football team in the last 40-plus seasons.
Okay, I will tell you the one thing that I would like to hear from Jon Sumrall tomorrow. Okay? This might surprise you. I'm bringing with me former Gator Bam Hardman to be my linebacker coach.
I wouldn't mind that.
How about that? He's the linebacker coach at Tulane, Bam Hardman. Got some good memories of Bam. Would love to have him back on our staff or on our staff for the first time, obviously.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
So I don't want to hear Stricklin talk. From Sumrall, I know he is, but I'm just going to mute that portion of it. What I want to hear from Sumrall is what we talked about earlier. Billy Gonzalez will stay on the staff.
I would like to hear him say that.
We're going to allow him to remain interim head coach. He will be my second in command and help me get acclimated to the way we do things. Because someone like Sumrall should never be asking, how do I do this? It should be, how do we do this here at the University of Florida specifically? So I will be keeping Billy Gonzalez along here on staff to help me with that. He will remain the interim coach of Florida until I complete my season, finish what I started at Tulane, and then he will remain on staff as our wide receivers coach. That's
so name me Billy G, wide receivers coach, Bam Harmon, linebackers coach.
There you go. We're helping him fill out his staff already. Look at that.
We fill out the staff, and then he could say an extensive search will be put out for the rest of my staff, yada, 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 coach speak, and then go from there. But I would love to see those two names mentioned in tomorrow's presser. All right, man. Good deal.
Good show, man. Thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate all your support. Please like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Please give us a 5-star rating and a nice review on Apple Podcasts. All that stuff helps us bring you guys more great Gator content, aside from the Stricklin hate, which I think, it's just necessary evil at this point. But the rest of the stuff we really enjoy bringing to y'all. Adrian, like we always say every show, at Gator Diamond Pod, he covers the Gator stickball year round. At Gator Diamond Pod for baseball/softball stuff specifically. Follow him personally at ADNDEL. I'm Neil Shulman, your host at All Kinds Weather. We appreciate you listening. We beat the Noles. We'll talk about that in more detail, and we'll be here to talk about more of the off-field moves that are going to be made. First ones have been made, David Caldwell and Jon Sumrall coming to Gainesville. As the rest of those pieces fall into place, we will be here to discuss it all. So until next time, Neil Shulman, Adrian Perez, go Gators. We'll see you next time.